Hello, everyone. Today is July 21st, 2023. My guest today is Dutch Deol. Dutch is the CEO and founder of Dromeda Networks. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Dutch.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Krush.
So, what problem were you looking to solve when you founded Dromeda Networks?
I think there's a couple different problems. One is just on the third-party networking, like companies. There's multiple companies that kind of do what we do. So we're not incredibly unique, but at the same time, some of them, like my former employer, has definitely changed just because of size. Company culture, things like that. And I wanted to cultivate kind of a different company culture. And then the other one is just the actual networking hardware industry in general. And third-party hardware kind of gets a bad name sometimes because people don't truly understand what they're getting from it. But we compete with Cisco, Juniper, Arista, like all the big networking company names. Mostly we call them connectivity products. A lot of companies call them like network peripherals. So we focus on optical transceivers, fiber cabling, copper cabling, cable management. And then we've also broken out and started doing more service-based product lines. So data center decommissions, like a little bit of integrations, helping companies do integrations, not necessarily doing integrations in our building and then shipping them, and then migrations, which is usually moving cages in data centers or buildings to other locations. So that's pretty much what we focus on, and kind of some of a little bit of competitive advantage, I guess you would say. But yeah, we can dig a little deeper in as we go.
What's the competitive advantage?
Yeah, so there's a good amount of them. So I think to get one of the biggest, or to paint a good picture of one of the biggest competitive advantages, which is price, you kind of have to go back and look at the history of the market itself. So when the large networking companies started coming out with fiber transceivers and copper transceivers for that matter, they started coding them so that you couldn't just plug a basic MSA, which is an industry standard for the parts that we use. You couldn't just buy one from overseas or a manufacturer and plug it into their switch and it properly work. They coded it so that they're looking for specific bits in the two tables that they usually have on the transceiver to properly communicate with that platform, whatever you're plugging it into, mostly so that they can control the pricing of those parts in the market. So some would say that that's almost a monopoly type of thing, or not necessarily monopoly, but just having a little bit of a hold on the market because you can control if they can use the part or not, per se. So the third-party industry came out when people started figuring out that where these specific bits in the code were and replicating those codes in the hardware that you could buy from any manufacturer. And so then obviously we can buy the product from a contract manufacturer, somebody that makes the parts for those big networking companies as well. We could buy direct from them and then code them for the specific platforms, and they work seamlessly. So we could undercut a lot of those networking companies because that's where they were making a huge amount of their margin and a lot of their customers' networks. A lot of networks spend between 10 and 15% of their networking budget on transceivers and network peripherals per se. So it was a pretty good amount of spend there, especially once you get into like S&P 500 type companies. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty large market and growing. Some other competitive advantages would be like lead times. A lot of these networking companies are 6 weeks to 6 months for certain products that they're trying to sell. And we hold inventory a lot better than they do. And so for the majority of product that is used, we have it in-house and we can send it within 2 or 3 days, rather than obviously waiting 6 weeks to 6 months. So, and then like you kind of already mentioned earlier is service. I mean, we focus really hard on making sure that our customers are the number one priority in the day-to-day business. So just being there to get quotes out really quickly, obviously help them with whatever we can, and just making them the center of this whole business, because that's all that it's about for the most part. So
That's huge.
Yeah, those are the 3 big ones.
That's huge for your customers too, because a lot of times with these, very huge commercial, off the shelf products, the big giants, they don't get back to you like you said. They take their time. They have a lot of customers, and you're not a huge blip on their radar, so they're gonna take their time. And for smaller customers, or anyone really that just needs a quick turnaround, that's a lot of businesses. They don't want to have those 6 weeks delays. So that's a huge, the time difference is massive, 5 weeks, and that's a cut of over 50% time.
Yeah.
And when you say network peripherals, what do you mean?
So like I already mentioned, network transceivers, optical transceivers, are a large portion of what we sell. And those are actually products that plug directly into network switches, routers, any sort of appliances that a company is buying to either facilitate internal networking for their company, or also if their business is focused on, or data focused per se, is probably a better way to put it, then they are in control of their own hardware. So a lot of software as service companies, hosting companies. I mean, anything that drives a high amount of traffic on the internet or any sort of data, storage companies, so on and so forth. And a lot of it, and not a lot, I mean, there's arguments on how much is going to the cloud versus how much is still owned by the companies. But it's still quite a large market. So,
but when it goes to the cloud, it's still on a network somewhere else, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Obviously, it's just going to a company that owns that cloud, which is still sitting on hardware somewhere in the world, just able to access it via internet rather than hosting it on your own internal network.
Okay, and that would be like AWS.
Sure. Yeah. AWS is the leader. Then I think it's Azure. Azure and AWS might actually be pretty close to each other. I don't know who's ahead right now. And then Oracle has a big one. Google is coming up and kind of taking more market share. And then there's a bunch of other smaller competitors in that market.
Okay.
Yeah.
But data centers, they're still around, and there are many companies that still require data centers, correct?
Oh yeah, significant. Yeah, I mean, this is obviously my industry, so I follow a lot of data center co-location companies, which co-location is a data center company that is focused on um, most of the infrastructure and connectivity portion of for their clients, and then their clients bring in their own hardware into those facilities. So you could have multiple companies in one building per se, if that makes sense. Does that?
Yes, that
Yeah.
does.
Versus like a Google or a Microsoft who actually own the entire data center that they're in most of the time.
And they're doing it through the cloud instead of having the customers bring in their own hardware.
Correct. Yes. A lot of times. And then, I mean, Google and Microsoft have so many other applications that they host on their own data centers as well, not just the cloud. So,
Right. Like there's a lot of traffic on Google Maps or the Amazon Marketplace.
correct. Yep.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow. So we go.
No. Yeah. Go for it.
Networking. That is a very interesting industry. How has the industry, you've been in the for over a decade now, you've been in the networking industry. How has it how have you seen it evolve, and what has it, how do you view it?
Yeah, it is. And a lot of people don't know about this part of the internet, because this is actually, they just think that the internet runs on, I honestly, I don't know, because when I first came into the industry, it was a whole new language, a whole new world. Like nobody really knows how it all works and connects. It's very intricate, and obviously I still don't know everything about it. But always love to learn. So when I first started, though, our main like data rate transfer transceiver was at 10 gigabits a second. And to a lot of people, that they think that that's a lot, right? Because they get what, like 100 megs, 200, 300, maybe a gig to your house. And so they think that that's super fast. But when it comes to the back end of all that traffic, and you get to kind of the core and spine of those networks, you're getting up to like 400, 800 gigs a second between some of their core networks. That's today. So back when I started, a lot of core was like 10 and 40 gig. So that was 10 years ago. And now it's 10 times that in terms of data rate. And they're just kind of coming out with 800 gigs a second right now. And I know that they're already working on 1.6 terabytes a second. So it's kind of just exponentially goes. So that's obviously a big difference in the market. And then, the market, which is kind of bad for third party and the market in general, it's commoditizing a little bit, which means that obviously there's more competition in the market, which means that people can get better pricing. They can't always get better service. So that's a huge part of the market that we still focus on. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely competition in it. And when I first started, there wasn't a ton. There was probably 2 major companies that were doing it. And now there's probably, I would say, 5 to 10 major companies. I wouldn't even consider myself a major company. I'm kind of like a smaller one, but yeah, we're working our way up. We want to get into the industry and make a name for ourselves. But yeah.
And well, that's a huge change. Even, if you're not considering yourself, then it's more than 5 to 10. And that's a big difference in just 2 big players.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking to what you just said, you have begun the journey of starting up Dromeda Networks, and how, what inspired you to do that, to transition to create your own company?
Yeah, kind of like I touched on earlier. A lot of it had to do with company culture, because I loved a lot of the people that I worked with at my old job. It was more kind of the overarching company that kind of got a little more, what's the word that I'm looking for? Bureaucratic. That's more of a political term, but I'll give you a little background on what happened to our company, or my old company. It started out very small. I was the ninth employee at a company that did obviously what I'm doing now. We grew to about 53 people. And then the owners of that company decided they wanted to sell the company. So they actually sold it to a private equity company. They had a company that did the same type of function as us in their portfolio already. So they merged our companies together and created an entity that was like 110 people big. And then usually private equity holds companies for 3 to 5 years before they sell it. But they were actually getting ready to start a new fund in their PE firm. And so they wanted to get some free cash flow and show some returns. So they actually got rid of us pretty quick. And it was only a year that they owned us. And then they sold us to a very, very large multinational company. And so once that entity owned us, the whole corporate culture changed. It became very corporate. Obviously, we were kind of low man on the totem pole in terms of seniority versus a lot of the other parts of the company, just because we're a new player coming in, and it just wasn't as family friendly oriented as the small startup culture that I was used to. So that's something that I really want to facilitate at Dromeda, is just kind of, even if we do grow and get really large, is just have that startup culture, give people the freedom to think outside the box and really kind of be passionate about what they're doing. And when you try and restrict that type of thought process too much, then it just, I think it kills innovation, and it just kind of doesn't allow for your employees to live up to their full potential.
No. And to move around two different companies, to be bought and sold, bought, merged, sold like that, from a company of 50 some, starting at less than single digits, moving to 50 some, then being bought and, or being, bought and then sold, two different companies. That's just a lot to go through, like boom, 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 as an employee.
Yeah, within 2 years. And the multinational company that bought us, I think, had 10,000 employees globally. So it's just obviously leaps and bounds farther past even 100 employees.
Yes. And how you're gonna manage a single one, their experience is gonna be way different.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So looking forward, Dutch, is there anything with Dromeda Networks, with networking, that you're looking forward to in the next maybe 1-2 years?
Yeah, I mean, we're already growing. We're already looking at expanding and hiring more people. right now we're kind of in a planning phase because we just got, we're starting to grow significantly more and faster, a little exponential growth, which is great. But at the same time, like I said, I want to keep a certain type of culture, and that requires a lot of planning. So just being able to, like you said, looking forward, appropriately plan and financially and keep growing steadily without kind of hindering that progress is what I'm looking for. But personally, just keep learning the industry. I'm getting very close with some of my customers, and they're kind of speaking to me about different certifications that I can get that might help get the foot in the door for the services portion, as well as just overall understanding of what people need and the best way to approach different different types of people per se in selling those products or services. So, I mean, just continuing to learn, and it's an ever evolving industry because when I started, it was heavily cold calling for sales, and that's not really the culture of today. It's hard to get people on the phone, hard to get direct lines to people, and even if you do, I mean, I don't know about you, but most of the time when I get a sales call, it's not like you're super warm and open to the idea most of the time.
No.
Yeah, so it's just kind of learning the best way to approach people in the industry, network engineers, network architects, director of network infrastructure, going all the way up to like a CTO, depending on who owns that portion of the network. Yeah, it's hard. It spiderwebs off very quickly in the industry on who owns like portions of the network itself. So just kind of learning how to best sell the product as we go forward, because it's ever evolving is a big one. So yeah, we're looking forward to it. I think it's, like I said, an evolving problem. So you always have to be thinking about it and evolving with it, and just making the best out of what you got.
Especially in the industry, networking industry, where things move rapidly, you have to keep up with that really quick pace.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you.
And you brought up two things that I thought were pretty interesting. You spoke about speaking with your customer, and you said how much value that brings to you. And also you mentioned making sure your finances are in order for the company, which isn't easy.
Mm-hmm.
And so could you speak about either of those?
Yeah, sure. I mean, building relationships with clients is kind of the pedestal or a stake in kind of sales in general, meaning you want to be close with them. You want to be honest with them. Honesty is a huge part of sales. I know some people get turned off because they think salespeople are just kind of snake oil salesmen who are just trying to get you to buy something that doesn't work. But making them truly understand where you're coming from and that your product will help them. It'll function, it'll be less cost, and you can get it quicker. I mean, those are the three largest sales competitive advantages that we have. But since they haven't ever heard of our name, it's hard to get them to understand that we can do it. So just building relationship trust with those clients is a huge part of building a business, getting clients that are loyal. And like I said, not making them kind of fear for their network, because that's their business as well. Obviously, the people that we sell to, that's their job, is to make sure that their networks are up and running 24/7 and don't have any hiccups. And the product that we sell is a large, very important part of that network. So if our parts fail, then they fail ultimately, and we can't have that. So building trust in our product and with our customers is a huge portion. And then in terms of financial, just being able to properly forecast the sales pipeline is huge for growth, because if you can have a very good view of sales that are going to come in, then you can build out a hiring schedule, making sure that you're kind of hiring people that are very needed for you, for your business to grow. So I think that's the sales portion, that's very important. And then operationally, I mean, I wouldn't say California is the most business welcoming state in the country. So we've been looking at options of moving around to somewhere where we can get a bigger building and be able to kind of do more with what we have. So that's always up in the air, and things that you kind of look at as a small business. And then just investing obviously back into the business itself, being able to buy more development tools, lab equipment, being able to, which helps develop more products for your customers, make sure that your products, like I said, are working properly, so that you can retain that trust that you build with your customers, is a huge portion. And just being able to kind of plan that out as well, because that's a huge part of our business, is being able to get those network switches so that we can make sure that our product works properly, and how we advertise it to our customers, so that, like I said, they have the trust to keep purchasing from us.
Absolutely. And in today's, infosec networking environment, customers do not accept much latency.
No, they don't. They want things. The Amazon Prime culture is real today. They want things tomorrow or yesterday, and that's it for the most part.
Tomorrow or yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, Dutch, thank you for coming on the podcast, and thank you for speaking about Dromeda Networks and what you all do.
Yeah.
Are there any last words you'd like to leave our audience?
Yeah, I mean, if you're interested in the networking industry at all, I'd love to talk to anybody. I mean, it's definitely an interesting part of the economy that, like I said earlier, people don't really know about it. I know you have a little background in it, but it's a very interesting, for people that are more technical, it's a very interesting industry. So I would encourage, and there's jobs open all the time, not just at our company, but with companies that we sell to. They're always looking for networking guys, or just technical people in general that will help their business grow. So would love to talk with anybody if they're interested in it. So Karush, I really appreciate the time and you inviting me on. It's been awesome.
Yes, it's been awesome. My guest today has been Dutch Deol. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Dutch.
Thanks, Karush. Have a good one.